Hello and welcome back to our next course review at Precision Disc Golf. Today we are reviewing Hyland Hills Disc Golf Course in Bloomington, Minnesota. This course was closed for the better part of 2015 or 2014. They've been doing a lot of renovations to the ski hill, but it's located just out south of Minneapolis on a nice little ski hill and offers some of the best elevation in the Twin Cities area. It's the first 90-degree day this year, so it's hot, and this is a tough course to play, sort of open in the sun. But hole 1 plays 237 feet uphill, so I would say that functionally it feels a lot longer than that. You can certainly get a mid or something up there, but you have to throw it pretty hard. But again, it's pretty straightforward. Just throw it up the hill, take your putt, and your birdie. Hole 2 plays directly across the hill. It was some pretty wicked swirling winds out there today. So at 430 feet, it requires a pretty good rip. I tried to keep it a little bit low because if you flip it over and go down that hill to the right, it's just a pain to go get. So more than anything, you don't really want to have to go retrieve your disc. But there I throw a Colossus, end up about 30 short, just sort of shank that go for it putt, but make the comebacker. So again, just pretty much whatever you can get as far as you can straight, but I do recommend keeping it low unless you're going to throw a power hyzer. Hole 3, here I end up throwing a leopard up this center gap. You can see it's much tighter than it looks in the video. Since this video was made, I've played the course a few times, and every time I just throw thumbers over the top. The lane, once it's grown in more, is kind of ridiculous. I don't think it's a great hole personally, but it's much easier to go up and over. So if you have the ability to throw an overhand, that's the way to go. Hole 4 is deceiving. I actually didn't know where the pin was on this because they had changed it since the last time I played it, but the larger tree that's dead off to the right of the path ahead, it's just behind there. So here I'm throwing a leopard to try and get up. I actually think I do a missed throw because I think I'm following the path further up, only to find out the basket is kind of through the woods here on the right. So I just pitch a putt right through the branches, and it manages to stick. So obviously I'm pretty excited about that. But yeah, in this one, it's pretty much just throw something straight up the path, and you'll see once we get up here that you have a pretty open putt if you put it about 280 feet just up that hill. Hole 5 is one of the harder holes on the course, in my opinion. 510 feet, but plays uphill for the first portion and then slightly downhill for the next. So the goal is to get you don't want to throw all the way to those pine trees that you saw, and that's probably a little over 400 feet, so it's a pretty good rip to get all the way up there. You want to give yourself a chance to either throw a hyzer from the left side of the fairway up by the skiing ramp there where you would get off the ski lift. I throw it a little short, but it's about where you want to be for an easy approach. So just center. There I believe I just threw a Colossus, and then I threw a Truth mid-range approach. It's a blind approach your first time, but you can walk up and see it from there. So the big thing is on your approach shot, never ever try to throw a hyzer that goes deep. Hole 6 is one of my favorite holes on the course. It's probably one of the most difficult too because of the shape. What you want to do is throw a putter or a mid-range or something that you can get to break right, but not too hard, sort of a gentle curve. Something like a Comet would be great there. I throw and hit a branch, and that just is what it is. Then I make a bad decision. I try to throw a D1 so it will skip flare all the way down, but it got there too fast. I should have thrown a zone or something slower, so I'm forced to pitch down with my putter here, and taking a 4 on this hole is not a big deal though. It's very easy if you get way into the woods to fight a 5 off. It's a great hole, but it requires a lot of finesse to take an easy 3. Hole 7 is interesting because 230, and it drops off pretty well. So here I'm throwing a PA1, just super low again to stay out of the wind. There's a couple posts, and I nearly ace run it. I've since taken to taking a zone or an A1 and throwing just a little flick hyzer at it, something that'll dump hard right. It seems to be a little safer shot, so you never have to worry about throwing too high. Hole 8 here is a new hole for me. It says it's 330 feet straight. Here I'm throwing a Truth, and I don't feel like it plays 330. at least that throw felt pretty easy for a 333-foot throw for a mid for me. Not that I can't get one there, but my guess is it's more like 300 feet. Hole 9, 245 downhill. This one's pretty straightforward. The only real danger is if you're trying to hyzer, hitting some of the ski hole equipment here on the right. But otherwise, besides the tee pad facing kind of the wrong direction, it's a pretty standard just downhill hyzer throw. So there I'm throwing a PA1. I try to just keep it on a hyzer. Ends up a little deep, but thankfully I make a pretty big putt here to save the two. Going on to hole 10, 390 feet. I think this is actually one of the more challenging holes on the course. This is one of my favorites too. You have to throw all the way to the top where you can see it start to level out. And as far as you can get up that hill dead straight without getting too far left is the idea. Being right is okay, but you don't want to be left. So I throw this one too low, so I didn't get enough distance out of it. There I believe I threw a D1. And on your approach, you're trying to basically get to that tree line but go extremely far left so you have a putt. I throw mine too far straight and end up against the woods, hugged up against, so I have trouble to get the shot. So then I try to flick a zone, and it doesn't go great, but I put myself within 20 feet to putt. So again, it's not a great 4, but it's also it's a nice 3. Hole 11, this is a new hole. They switched a couple tee pads around. So this one I'm throwing blind. I know it's just really far left. So for my first time out, even though it's only 331 feet, I'm throwing a D1 because I want it to cut pretty hard left, and I don't want to have to throw something too hard. Obviously, I go a little bit deep there, so in the future I'll be throwing something different. I think right now I'm throwing either a mid or something like an H3 or probably a Firebird is about right for most people there. Hole 12, 425 feet. I think it's about level. Maybe it plays a little bit longer, but again, you have to throw it over 400 feet to really put yourself in a super easy birdie situation. I'm trying to keep it low to keep it out of the wind, so I just release too low. Don't get enough distance on this one, and obviously can't convert my deuce. But again, it'd be pretty hard to 4 this hole, so it's nice to be able to just walk away with an easy 3, but it's a great deuce as well. Hole 13, they've actually shortened this one from the old pin position, so it's even easier. It used to be probably another 20-30 feet. The uphill is a lot bigger than it looks right now, so if you come out here, just remember to throw it a little bit harder than you think, because I'm throwing a PA1 here, but you do have to give it a little more oomph than you think. But again, a pretty easy ace run or birdie. Hole 14 is another one of the brand new holes that they put in. I like it much better than the old hole 14. Plus it's a little more scenic. But it plays right up this path and just on the right where you can see the wood chips. Again, it's my first time throwing it. I probably will throw a putter, and I usually have in the future, but there I throw an M4. Something I can just throw dead straight. End up a couple feet deep, but again, it's not too far off to the right, so if you throw something straight 240 feet, then you're going to have a beautiful putt. 15 is another brand new hole. I wasn't sure what to think of this one. I just knew that I didn't want to go into the woods either way. So I throw basically a gentle approach hyzer on a forehand. That's just a destroyer I'm trying to beat in. And lo and behold, the basket's right up there. So a pretty easy hole if you're willing to just play placement, and drop in. I think it would be a very difficult 2 for somebody. They would have to have a huge forehand or a huge backhand ante. I don't think I could get there, so I think if you want to try it, go for it, but good luck. 16 here is also a new hole. It plays right at the edge of this tree line, but it's super downhill. So I'm actually forehanding an A1 because it's a disc I know that when I throw on a forehand hyzer, I can't flip up and it certainly won't glide. It's a great result. My forehand I'm not comfortable with much other than a dumping and a hyzer sort of thing. That's why I don't throw them very often. But on this hole, I've thrown it every time and I've birdied it every time. So it might actually be harder for people if they have a good forehand. 17 plays uphill all the way to the grove of the trees just on the right there. It requires a pretty tremendous drive. So here I'm throwing a D1, trying to get up the hill. You can get all the way up there, but it's pretty well protected. I should say some people can get all the way up there. I'm not one of them. For me, it's always going to be a 40 or 50 foot shot for a putt, and because the uphill is pretty extreme. But again, it's not too bad of a hole as long as you get far enough up where you can finesse your approach shot in. Hole 18 is super fun. As you can tell, you get great views of Bloomington. Then many parts you can see downtown Minneapolis. But normally I would throw a mid-range, something with a lot of glide. Buzz Rock M4, something like that. But because it's been super windy, I throw a T-bird and I just keep it really low, sort of on a flat throw. End up about pin deep. At this point, I've been tired. I played a warm-up round earlier in the day, and I couldn't even get a 30-foot putt to the basket. So anyway, the new Hyland Hills layout, I think it definitely plays more favorable to those who throw a technical game rather than a pure bomber game. I really like the layout. It's a fun course, and